Hey guys, welcome to On the Stack, presented to you by Gamers Edge and GETV. I'm Victor. This is fucking Tony. He's crazy.
That's right.
And today on the Stack, alright, so today on the Stack, you're fucking crazy. Today on the Stack, we're gonna actually cover deck building. Last week we covered tips and tricks for new players for competitive standard. We're kind of going into the competitive scene. So today we're gonna kind of cover deck building and what's different. And like certain things that you should watch out for, certain things you should pay attention to. As simple like when you grab a deck and you're playing competitively, you want to make your own version. You want to kind of, you do.
No, they want to. I'm telling them not to.
Oh, you're such an asshole. But you want to make your own version. You want to like bring something out. I mean, they could be. They could be the next one. I mean, at the end of the day, you won't know until you try, right? So, don't be a fucking dick. So.
That's what kitchen tables are for.
Fucking table is a dick. But today, we're going to cover several points. Yeah. So the first one we're going to talk about is generally the archetype that you want to play when you're deck building. At the end of the day, you can pick, the color combination you want to play, but that's not really the archetype. You want to kind of know or choose what you want your deck to do. And there's 4 archetypes. One of them kind of doesn't ever really see play in Standard, and we'll leave that one for last. But the first one we're going to talk about is aggro. And aggro is pretty straightforward. You play a bunch of guys, you punch them in the teeth, and then go home. And
kill them fast.
Yeah, in aggro, it's like either you own them in 15 minutes, and then you get to watch the rest of your friends be miserable and hate their lives, like stressing through the game, or you get your ass whooped in 15 minutes, and then you kind of just like, oh, cool, I'm going to go around and follow my friends stressing out, play their games. It's really straightforward. There's not a lot of thinking process when it comes to stuff like that. Like, you kind of choose what creatures you want to play and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's really straightforward. Play a creature, punch people in the teeth. Would you lost your fucking shoe there, man?
Yeah, man. My shoe's on the floor.
It should be.
Just got a text message from the producer, so.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's like right there. All right, whatever. Besides the point. It's pretty straightforward. Then the next thing you have is control, which is literally the complete opposite aspect. It's basically you sit there and you kind of react. You let them play what. You play whatever the. This is fucking asshole. So you play. Basically, you sit back. You react to your opponent. You play like 1 or 2 guys. Involves a lot sweeping the board because if you're not a good control player, like aggro is just gonna punch you in the teeth. It's like very rock paper scissors like that. So you're gonna have to play wrath effects or a lot of removal kind of interact because that's gonna kill you.
There's obviously a lot of different types of control. You have permission. You have
tap out.
Tap out. At the end of the day, those are all sub-archetypes.
But at the end of the control decks.
But at the end of the control, you are always some kind of reactive.
Yeah. Then there's midrange. Midrange is actually one of the archetypes that is actually favored, I want to say, amongst most players, is midrange.
It's the most forgiving. Midrange is generally the most forgiving.
I kind of feel that way, yeah.
There's a lot of matchups where you can keep a not great hand and not be punished in a midrange. Yeah.
Yeah, where like in aggro control, it's not as much. Like I feel like mulliganing is way more important than control in aggro matchups. Like when you're playing those decks instead of
a mid-range deck, pretty much mulligans to lands.
Yeah.
It's mid-range decks more or less. They develop what they want to do as the game goes.
Yeah, as they progress.
If they're playing against an aggro deck, they'll try to take on more of a control role. If they're playing against a control deck, they'll try to take on more of an aggro role. Yeah. If they're playing against a mid-range deck, you'll call a judge.
Eventually, at some point, yeah. Someone's cheating, right?
Right.
Again, midrange is one of the more favored ones, but at the same time, midrange I feel is a little bit more difficult to play out of the 3 because you have to decide on the fly what you're doing.
Usually, midrange decks always rise to the top. Usually, in stable formats, a midrange deck will rise to the top, or a series of midrange decks will rise to the top. There will be like the one aggro match, the one control deck, and then a couple of viable mid-range decks.
Yeah.
I mean, last season, mid-range was like junk reanimator. That was a mid-range deck.
This ain't school, bro. Fucking school. You crazy. All right, so last season, yeah, that's very much the show. And then the last thing that's Archetype that no one ever plays ever in Standard ever.
Except for like Splinter Twin Deceiver Exarch and.
That's modern, not Standard.
No, that was Standard. It was Standard for a very long time.
When it was Standard.
Now, there's definitely a combo deck right now.
And it doesn't win.
That's true. Maze's End does not win.
Okay, cool. Back to things that are relevant.
No, last Standard, there was Burn at the Stake combo.
That shit was trash. Are you fucking serious?
I won on Moto with
Whatever,
that.
kiss my ass.
Moto,
fucking Moto, booty-ass Moto bullshit. At the end of the day, it's combo. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about combo decks. Combo's really straightforward. They're one-trick ponies. It literally... That's it.
They kind of veer into either the control where they're like, I will just make sure I can do this, or they'll veer into the aggro, which is you do what you need to do, I'm going to try to win. That's where the combo decks kind of go. There's no mid-range combo, really.
Yeah.
There's a mid-range deck that may have a combo in it, but there's no combo deck that is a mid-range
The main
idea.
focus of a combo, it's a one-trick pony. I mean, that's just straight up what it is. There's the one little thing, okay, play this card, play that card, haha, I win, hey. That's about it. At the end of the day, that's what you're playing. You're playing the one-trick pony. That's why a lot of people aren't playing it. That's why combos aren't that strong. And at the end of the day, if combo actually becomes really, really good, they ban cards on the combo. I mean, Modern and Legacy, there's always going to be combo. Standard.
Combos, it's a good thing to keep players on their toes. Like,
not really.
I like combo decks. I like having them there. I like Charbelcher in Legacy. I like seeing that deck because I don't care what I'm playing.
Again, but it's a different format. Things are a little bit different. You have a little bit more options. But in Standard, when everything's limited, like the play of combo is really, really difficult to deal with if it happens to actually be good. Yeah. So once you kind of picked what archetype you want to do, you have to you have to develop a synergy.
Yeah, we're long past the time of previous Jund where it was like, look at these good cards, even though Jund statistically has always been look at these good cards. That's kind of what Jund does. Yeah. Jund really just felt like a pile of cards. Even like the Reanimator just felt like a pile of cards. Synergy, you see it in literally every deck in the format right now. Every deck. Nykthos, any deck that runs Nykthos is a synergistic deck.
Yeah, it's a synergy deck.
Any deck that runs... no, it's fine. Nykthos is good enough. Like, that's a good enough example. Every deck runs Nykthos.
Well, not every deck.
Yeah, but you see the value of like a card that works very well.
Works very well.
The rest of the cards in the deck. And then your sideboard.
So you want to develop synergy. You can't play a deck that feels... What's the word? Clunky. You don't want to play a deck that feels really like it doesn't mesh well. There's certain conflicts within the deck, which sometimes when people are, the prime example is mid-range decks. Sometimes people do it naturally because they think they're just bashing the best cards in the format together, make the best deck, and that's completely false. Period.
Don't do that.
And that's actually the complete opposite of synergy. You don't want to do that. You don't ever want to do that because you're just going to embarrass yourself. You're just going to go out there and play and get your ass whooped by a 12-year-old because he's got synergy with his stupid little gobos and you don't. You're an asshole.
Case in point, Whip has great synergy with Obsidat, but that's 2 cards in a deck of 2 different cards in a deck of 60.
75 technically because you have
75.
Yeah.
So you now have to figure out how those cards work in synergy with the rest of your deck.
Yeah.
Or if that's the trick pony in your deck, you're like, oh no, I'm playing mono black, but I'm splashing white for Obsidat. So that's you see what I'm saying? You can't just throw cards together right now. Yeah. There is synergy. Synergy is important, and that's
and that
step 2 basically when you're building a deck.
But it's synergy, and that kind of goes right into the next thing we're going to talk about, which is card selection.
Yes, very important.
Yeah.
Very well. It sounds like synergy, but it's not. Card selection is what slots need to be filled. What does exactly what you needed to at the slot. And another example is if you're playing black and you have access to God knows how many removal spells right now. At the 2-drop slot, there's a ton. There's, I think,
Ultimate Price,
6.
Doomblade,
Devour
Flesh.
Abrupt Decay if you're in a green.
Dreadbore
if you're in red. You do have so many different depth of options at slots that you just need to know which one does what you need to do. Do you need to run Hero's Downfall because you're, in testing, you've determined you're really weak to Planeswalkers, or that 3-mana is not that big of a deal for you to invest in a card.
Yeah.
Then that's
and then you
great.
got to bump it up to a third slot, and then like, what do you use in the third slot? You have to choose your cards wisely for your third slot. What do you put in your second slot over it? Like,
make sure your deck has a curve. Make sure that if you're playing a control list, you know you want the game to go long, so you take advantage of a longer game by playing more lands and bigger impact cards.
Better, yeah.
And like if you want a game to go really short, you're not adding 5 drops Rob Till. You're not adding Stormbred Dragon to a 20-land deck and somehow top 8. I don't remember how he... Anyway.
Love you, Rob.
He'll be sitting here again.
He will. He will, and that's the best part.
Yeah. So, you know what? It could work. Test it. These are things you have to know that there's the best card in the slot for what you're trying to do, and do it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's, pretty straightforward. You don't want to grab a card that's 5 mana that kills a creature when you can pick a 2-mana card that does the same thing. Because you want to kill it now and not kill it 5 turns from now when it's already killed you. No,
if you do make that choice, why? Why is Cyclonic Rift better than Vapor... Not Vapor Snag.
Yeah. Was it Vaporkin?
No, that's Voyage's End. Why are you running that? I don't know. Maybe. Whatever.
Voyage's End is pretty bad.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
You get the scry. Okay, whatever. Besides the point. At the end of the day, when you're building your deck and you're going, you're brewing, you're brewing your deck and you're going through stuff. Some of the things you have to realize, even when you grab a net deck, variation.
Absolutely.
You want variation. You want something that's going to make you a little bit different than the same bullshit that everyone else is playing. Like, you can grab a deck, copy and paste it, go to an event, and then everyone's ready for exactly what you're playing because you're playing a deck that everyone already knows, and you're just kind of cool. Hope you get your best matchups and you get lucky with your pairings, and that's about it. But when you brew, you make a little bit of variation, maybe it can hedge you. Maybe you can have a certain percentage that, instead of being 60-40 against a certain matchup that, 60% of the time you lose, you make one variation change, you become 50-50. And that also has to do with, knowing the right deck to go to a tournament. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes, a deck wins because in that tournament, people couldn't deal with it based on who came. At the end of the day, you don't control who comes to the event. You got to just go there and deal with what you got. And at the same time, when you're brewing, that's something you have to worry about. That's something you have to think about. You have to see, did a deck that just came out of nowhere last weekend place, when Splinter Twin first happened. Or not Splinter Twin, the Enchantment, Pyromancer.
Pyromancer's Ascension.
Pyromancer's Ascension. Pyromancer's Ascension, when we're playing, Pyromancer is an enchantment that you play the same card twice and get a counter on it, and then we have 3 counters on it.
You have 3 counters, it
gives you a free copy spell every single time. So at first you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, but when it first came out and people tried to play it, it wasn't that good. But then what ended up happening is out of nowhere, one of our buddies actually made the deck, and then he went and won with the deck.
I remember that.
And the very next weekend,
was everywhere.
At an event we went to. We were like, well, maybe we won't have to deal with that.
Because the deck was $12. Everyone was playing a deck for $12.
We feel like it was one trick pony. It was just kind of Very next weekend, it was all over the place. It was quite ridiculous, and we're just like, we're not. Yeah, it was a show pony. It was just something we couldn't deal with. We're like, we're a show pony.
What's that?
Fuck you. So. Oh my god. In a row. Such an asshole. So, you're such a dick. So, what ends up happening is, that's something you have to worry about. And that's why brewing is good. So, you end up seeing certain things that maybe last weekend there was a certain deck that hedged and won, and maybe we got to worry about it now. Whoa. And then you're going to brew and to deal with that and change your deck accordingly, where some of the other people, we were the assholes, who didn't change our deck, and we kind of got our ass whooped by it because we just kind of underestimated it, and at the end of the day, you shouldn't do that.
Case in point in the variants, 2 people sat down, about 2 weeks ago, 2 people sat down and said, I want to play Boros. And they both got into the finals, and they both had Boros decks, and they were miles apart. Yeah. One was a mono red deck that was a little bit of a splash of white.
I think it was called Barely Boros, right?
No, Barely Boros was the mono white deck. Okay. That was a little bit of a splash of red.
Yeah.
what? They're both Boros, they're both aggro, but the variation, the little bit of change, what the point is, that's different. So when you're building your deck, you want to make sure that the changes that you make are relevant. You want to make sure that you're not putting cards together because you think they're great. Lot Withdrawal and Scavenging Ooze work very well together. We can see that because we can read. Reading can see that. Knowing that they're both at the 2-drop slot probably means it's not going to be the best curve out for you. Knowing that you have to have both on to get super value, not going to be the best.
So, but then at the end of the day, like you end up playing the third on your third slot. You play a 2-drop. You kind of just fucked yourself. You don't want to do that. Like that's bad news bears. That's no.
And then
Superman no here. No.
And last but not least, testing.
Well, there's the we refer to it as the Gauntlet. When we refer to it as Gauntlet, it's when you grab a bunch of the decks that you're going to see, like the meta, and you test against the meta. And like we were saying last week, practice.
Test the decks. You're not going to know until you do it.
Practice.
So we've been talking more about new players and deck building because we're about to get into a new segment. Stay tuned. It's going to be called Brew Time, where me and Vic and whatever schmuck is brought up off the street to do this is going to come up with a terrible deck idea, and you're going to watch us pilot our abortions just all over the place.
I don't know about that one.
And
I don't know about that one.
That's going to be bad, dude.
I don't know. Maybe you.
Underworld Cerberus is going to see play.
No!
Yeah. These terrible decks, not really. We're going to try to build decks, and then we're going to test them. We're not going to test our brews against our brews because you're not going to learn anything.
Well, yeah,
we're going to test our brews.
What are you going to learn against playing Kitchen Magic and then go to the tournament?
That's like,
but back when I played on my mom's fucking table and whooped his ass. What is that?
No, we're going to
that don't work. It don't work that way. That's not reality. If that's what you think, you should watch more of our show because you're going to learn some shit.
We're going to test against maybe Esper Control. You don't know. Stay fucking tuned.
Yeah, we're going to definitely go over that stuff. So, at the end of the day, all right, guys. So, apparently we had some technical difficulties. Some things came through. And Ted was a little upset. And Tony was a little upset. So now, man, fuck you, nigga. So, so apparently he wants a beer. So, what we're gonna do, oh man. So,
thanks for watching On the Stack.
Yeah.
I'm Tony.
Brew Time.
Brew Time's coming up next week. Remember, brought to you by GETV and Gamer's Edge.
I'm Victor. This is Tony, and this is our boy, the mascot, the one and only Ted, because he's our boy and we love him so much. And stay tuned until next time, guys. Hope you had a good time.